Hey, I'm John Landis, host of the Apprenticeship Woodworking series here on YouTube with another quick tip tool review covering the tools that I think you may or may not need in your shop as you're setting it up in the garage or the basement. So we've covered the table saw, the jointer, and the planer. Those are three tools that I think if you're really going to be a woodworker on the weekends and you're really going to take this seriously and go after it, those are the tools you need to have. Now we've kind of gone into the tools that make other jobs easier but are not necessary in your shop. One of them is the bandsaw. Now it's called a bandsaw because the blade is a continuous band that goes up and around this wheel, and then there's a lower wheel in the lower casement. Bandsaws are used for roughly two reasons. One, to cut curves in wood. So, for example, this is one of our chair leg blanks. We would put the pattern on here and need to cut a curve for our chair legs. That would be one reason why you might want a bandsaw. The other reason would be to take panels or boards and resaw them into panels. Resawing means you take a certain thickness of board, put it on edge, send it through the bandsaw, and when you're finished with that, it opens up into what is called a nice book-matched panel that you can glue together and put into doors or on tabletops, whatever you're using it for. So those would be the two main reasons that you would want to get a bandsaw. Now, what size bandsaw you need, of course, as with the other tools, determines how much you can do with it. It also determines the price and how much space it takes up. So I would recommend that you woodwork for a little while, a couple months, maybe 6 months or a year, and really think about how many times have you needed to cut curves in wood. Up till this point, you've probably been using a jigsaw to cut those curves, and there aren't a lot of other ways to resaw a board. Maybe start the cut on a table saw and finish it with a handsaw. But after about 6 months or a year of this, how often do you wish you had a bandsaw would kind of determine whether or not you're going to get one. Now, size is the other thing. Now, to me, we bought a large bandsaw when we started out because we knew we were doing this professionally. We were going to want the biggest bandsaw that we could afford and thought that we would use. Now, the way a bandsaw is sized typically is it talks about the distance that it can take between the blade and the cover here, which is called the throat. Now this is a 20-inch bandsaw, which means I can put a 20-inch board through here. It also means the wider that is, typically the bigger throat I can have in this way and resaw a bigger board then. So this is a 20-inch bandsaw, can take 20 1/4 this way and about 13 1/2 this way. So when you're considering bandsaws, you don't have to get the biggest, baddest bandsaw that you can afford, although the good news is bandsaws aren't going to break the bank. This is a 20-inch. This probably costs around $2,000 now. But you can get some really nice bandsaws, 14-inch, 15-inch, for the, say, $1,500 range, and even that might be more bandsaw than you need. I've seen, say, bench tops, as well as they're still floor models, but that are up on stilts for, say, $700, $800. Now, the things to consider in a bandsaw, in addition to how wide the throat is and how tall the blade throat is the horsepower and how big a blade can it take. Because that's really going to determine the accuracy of your cut. So, first of all, horsepower. If you're finding that you're cutting a lot of 2-inch thick hardwoods, you're not going to want to get a 1/2 horsepower or 1 horsepower bandsaw. You're going to want to step up to 1 1/2, 2 horsepower so that it can take the wood that you're trying to pass through it. Similarly, you want to make sure that the maximum blade width that it can take is at least 3/4, maybe an inch, because you're going to want to always have on here about a 1/2 inch blade. So in considering which bandsaw you want to get, make sure that you're getting enough oomph for what you're trying to do. Again, 1 1/2, 2 horsepower, but make sure that the blade can take at least a 1/2 inch to 3/4, 1 inch blade. That's about it. You don't need a bandsaw in your shop, but it makes some projects and some procedures a heck of a lot easier and a heck of a lot more accurate. Thanks for watching. Look for another one later.